John 18:12-14, followed by 19-24. Then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in synagogues or at the temple, where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said." When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. "Is this the way you answer to the high priest?" he demanded. "If I said something wrong," Jesus replied, "testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest.
So the first character we see is the high priest. Caiaphas, of course, was high priest that year, but the narrative appears to place Jesus before Annas, who had been high priest previously, and probably still enjoyed the prestige of that position. The high priest, we're told, questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. So what sort of man was Annas? He was probably regarded with great respect by his contemporaries, a kind of elder statesman. And we know that his 4 sons served as high priests, and Caiaphas actually was his son-in-law. And since Luke speaks of the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas in Luke chapter 3 of his Gospel, it could be that while Caiaphas was the official priest recognised by the Roman government, Annas remained the power behind the throne. And now one stands before him that threatens that power, that prestige. He questioned Jesus first about his disciples. Perhaps he wanted a kind of a list of names. Subversion may have been suspected. Or was it maybe that Jesus had left secret instructions? First, tell me about your disciples. Then tell me about your teaching. If Annas suspected a secret plot, then Jesus told him to ask anyone about his teaching. It's a public matter. He said nothing privately to his disciples that he hasn't said openly to the world, in synagogues or in the temple, places where the Jews came together. Jesus' trial here before the high priest is actually no trial at all, because Jesus simply refers back to the ongoing trial that marked his whole public ministry. The high priest could question anyone who'd heard Jesus on any number of occasions, his own priestly colleagues in fact, and draw his own conclusions. Except Annas was not used to having his authority challenged, and Jesus is struck by one of the officers. The high priest is more interested in the success of Jesus, how large was his following, than in the truthfulness or untruthfulness of what he'd been teaching. Annas wanted Jesus' influence contained. He wanted it restricted to a few disciples. And yet here's Jesus appealing to witnesses in the synagogues, the temple, where all Jews came together. It's not surprising for Annas to want Jesus silenced, the effects of his teaching to remain on the margins. To the Annases of our world today, who would seek to silence the witness of Jesus Christ, the words of Jesus come to us afresh, don't they, this afternoon? If I have spoken wrongly, bear witness to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, what's your response this Good Friday afternoon? Do you need to hear Jesus' voice? Take care not to send him bound to Caiaphas.